Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long metal hallway toward the council chamber. His black uniform was clean and pressed, with the gold Earth symbol on his chest, catching the light from above. He carried a small data pad in his left hand and kept his face calm even though his heart was beating fast. Today would decide if humanity lived or died. The massive doors opened with a soft hiss, and Jake stepped into the biggest room he had ever seen. The ceiling went up so high he could barely see the top. Around him sat hundreds of alien beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like giant insects with clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Others were tall and thin with blue skin that seems to glow. In the center sat creatures made of pure light that hurt to look at directly. Jake walked to the small human platform in the middle of the chamber. All eyes and sensors turned toward him as he stopped and stood straight. The room became quiet except for the strange breathing sounds and electronic humming from the different alien species. Admiral Zixtera rose from her crystal chair. She was 12 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Her voice boomed across the chamber when she spoke. Human Representative Jake Morrison, you stand before the Galactic Council to hear our final decision about your species. Jake nodded once but said nothing. He had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years and knew when to speak and when to listen. The weight of 4 billion human lives pressed down on his shoulders. Your people have broken 17 different galactic treaties, Admiral Zixtera continued. Her forearms moved as she talked, pointing at floating screens that showed human colonies and ships. You have taken over star systems that were not given to you. You have built cities on worlds that belong to other species. You have expanded too fast and too far. The Vorthok representative made a clicking sound with his mouth parched. He looked like a giant ant standing on 2 legs with 6 arms covered. In black armor, humans breed too much and eat too much. They use up resources that should go to older and wiser species. The galaxy was peaceful before humans came. Jake felt anger rise in his chest but kept his voice steady. We have followed every rule you gave us. We have paid every tax and fee you demanded. Our colonies house 4 billion people who were born in space far from Earth. Where do you want them to go? President Morden spoke next. He was the oldest being in the council, so old that his body had turned into energy contained inside a metal shell. His voice sounded like it came from very far away. The council has voted. Humans have 30 standard days to remove all people and ships from every star system except Sol. You must return to Earth and stay there. And if we refuse, Jake asked, though he already knew the answer, then every human world will be destroyed. Admiral Zixtera said. Her stone face showed no emotion. Every human ship will be hunted down and destroyed. Every human colony will be burned until nothing remains. Your species will be completely removed from the galaxy. Jake looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Some looked happy about the decision. Others seemed bored, like they were discussing the weather instead of the death of billions of people. A few looked uncomfortable, but none spoke. Up for humanity! 30 days, Jake repeated slowly, to move 4 billion people and everything we have built over 200 years. That is correct, President Morden confirmed. The decision cannot be changed. The vote was final. Jake touched his data pad and a hologram appeared above his head. It showed maps of human space with red dots marking every colony, space station, and outpost. The display rotated slowly so everyone could see the size of what they were demanding. These colonies have schools full of children who have never seen Earth, Jake said. They have hospitals treating sick people who cannot be moved. They have farms growing food for millions of families. You are asking us to abandon everything and let our people die. The insect-like Vorthok made another clicking sound that Jake had learned meant laughter. Your species should have thought about that before you spread across the galaxy like a disease. Other species learned to control themselves. Humans did not. Admiral Zixtera waved one of her 4 hands. The Council has been patient with humanity. For too long, we have given you warnings and second chances. This is your final opportunity to comply peacefully. Jake turned off his hologram and looked directly at Admiral Zixtera. His voice was quiet, but everyone in the chamber could hear him clearly. Then you have made your choice. But I want you to remember something important. We came to you asking for partnership and cooperation. We offered to share our technology and knowledge. We wanted to work together to make the galaxy better for everyone." He paused and looked around the chamber once more. "You chose extinction instead of cooperation. You chose death instead of life. You chose to destroy rather than build. I want you to remember that this was your decision, not ours." Jake walked toward the exit but stopped before the doors. He turned back to face the council one last time. "Earth will send you a final message before the 30 days are over. That message will reach every corner of this galaxy and every species that voted today. When you receive it, remember that you forced our hand." The doors closed behind Jake with a soft click. The council chamber erupted in noise as different species talked and argued among themselves. Admiral Zixtura looked pleased with herself as she sat back down on her crystal throne. The Vorthok clicked happily to his neighbors. President Morden's energy form flickered as he processed what had just happened. None of them understood what Jake's final words really meant. They had dealt with stubborn species before and always won. They expected humans to surrender, just like all the others had done throughout galactic history. Far away on Earth, in deep underground bunkers hidden beneath the mountains of Colorado, Dr. Rachel Stone received Jake's coded message. She turned to her team of scientists and engineers who had been waiting for this moment for over 50 years. "Project Lazarus is now active," she announced to the room. "Begin the final sequence. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity." 3 weeks passed since the Galactic Council gave humanity their ultimatum. Across the galaxy, massive human ships filled with families and their belongings moved slowly toward Earth. The alien species watched these refugee fleets with satisfaction, believing they had successfully forced another stubborn race to submit to their will. On the mining world of New Pittsburgh, Carl Williams climbed down into the deepest tunnels his crew had dug over the past 15 years. The rocky walls around him held veins of rare metals that had made this planet valuable to both humans and aliens. But Carl was not here to mine today. His team of 12 engineers worked quickly in the dim light of their helmet lamps. They placed small silver devices along the tunnel walls at precise locations Carl had marked on his map. Each device was no bigger than a coffee cup, but contained enough power to split atoms. "Charges are set at drilling points 7 through 15, reported his assistant Pete Johnson over the radio. "Geological destabilization will begin exactly when you give the signal." Carl checked his watch and smiled grimly. "The aliens think we are just giving up and going home. They have no idea what we are really doing down here. When these charges go off, this entire planet will shake itself apart from the inside." 2,000 light years away on the agricultural world called Haven, botanist Lisa Park walked through enormous greenhouse domes that stretched beyond the horizon. For 20 years, these facilities had grown food for over 50 million people across 12 different star systems. The Galactic Council expected humans to simply abandon all this and let the crops die. But Lisa had been growing something else. Alongside the normal food plants, hidden in secret sections of each dome were laboratories where she had spent decades developing something the galaxy had never seen before. Biological agents that could spread through water and air to make entire planets impossible to live on. Distribution satellites are in position around every major alien world, she reported to her encrypted communicator. "When I activate the release sequence, every hegemony planet will start losing their ability to grow food within 6 months. Their populations will have to choose between starving or leaving their home worlds." Her assistant, Karen Davis, looked nervous as she checked the final preparations. "Are you sure about this, Lisa? We are talking about affecting billions of innocent civilians." Lisa stopped working and turned to face Karen directly. "They voted to kill 4 billion humans, including children and babies. They chose this path, not us. Every consequence that follows is their responsibility." In the empty space between stars systems, Admiral Steve Collins commanded a fleet of ships that officially did not exist. The hegemony military had no records of these vessels because humans had built them in secret using materials stolen over many years. Each ship was painted completely black and designed to be invisible to alien sensors. "All Dark Fleet vessels report ready status," Steve announced to his bridge crew. We have 48 ships positioned around every major hegemony military, base, and government center. They will never see us coming until it is far too late to defend themselves. His navigation officer, Julie Adams, studied the tactical display showing their hidden positions. Admiral, once we begin the attack sequence, there will be no going back. The galaxy will never trust humanity again. Steve nodded slowly. The galaxy already decided to exterminate us. Julie, trust was never an option after that choice. Our job now is to make sure they pay the full price for what they tried to do to our people. Back on Earth in the Colorado bunkers, Dr. Rachel Stone coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. Hundreds of scientists and engineers worked around the clock to synchronize timing across thousands of light years. Every human facility that appeared abandoned actually contained hidden systems waiting for activation. Quantum resonance generators are synchronized across all target systems, reported physicist Dr. Alex Chen from his bank of computers. When we activate them simultaneously, they will create a cascade effect that will ripple through hyperspace. Itself, every alien communication system will be permanently damaged. Rachel looked at the massive wall display showing the locations of every hidden human installation across the galaxy. Red dots marked mining operations, green dots showed research stations, blue dots indicated communication relays, and yellow dots represented trade posts. There were thousands of them scattered throughout every alien territory. How long have our people been placing these systems? Asked her assistant Frank Miller, who was new to the project. Over 200 years, Rachel answered. Ever since humans first left Earth, we have been quietly improving alien technology while pretending to just follow their orders. We fixed their broken machines, upgraded their computer systems, and built new equipment for them. They thought we were just cheap labor, but we were actually embedding ourselves into their entire civilization. The scope of the plan amazed everyone who learned about it. While the galaxy saw humans as primitive newcomers, humanity had actually become the invisible foundation holding alien society together. Every major system in hegemony space had human components. Every Vorthok hive city used human-designed climate control. Every Eldari computer network ran on human-written software. President Maria Santos addressed the United Earth government from the Capitol bunkers beneath Geneva. Her face appeared on screens in every human bunker and ship across the galaxy. My fellow humans, today we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. The galaxy has chosen to destroy us rather than accept us as equals. She paused and looked directly into the camera. But they made a critical mistake. They assumed we would accept extinction quietly. They forgot that humans have faced extinction before and always found a way to survive. We will not go quietly into the darkness. The final human evacuation ship departed from the Outer Rim territories right on schedule. To every alien observer, it appeared that humanity had completely complied with the Council's demands. Long-range sensors showed empty colonies, abandoned mining operations, and vacant space stations drifting powerlessly through space, but hidden throughout the galaxy. In systems both human and alien, millions of devices waited for a single signal. From Earth, mining charges placed in the hearts of planets, biological weapons aimed at agricultural centers, computer viruses ready to infect communication networks, military systems programmed to turn against their alien masters. The Galactic Council congratulated themselves on solving the human problem without firing a single shot. They believed their reputation for ruthless efficiency had once again forced a stubborn species into submission. Admiral Zixthera announced to her staff that the human crisis was completely resolved. None of them suspected that their own people had spent centuries helping humans prepare for this exact moment. Human technicians had maintained alien equipment for so long that the aliens no longer understood how their own technology worked. Human engineers had designed the systems that kept alien worlds habitable. Human programmers had written the software that controlled alien civilization. The 30-day deadline approached with the galaxy, believing they had achieved total victory over humanity. But in the deepest bunkers of Earth, Rachel Stone prepared to send a message that would change everything. A message that would show the galaxy exactly how much they had come to depend on the species they were trying to destroy. Day 30 arrived with celebration across the galaxy. The Galactic Council gathered on the massive space station Nexus, primed to witness what they believed was their complete victory over humanity. Holographic displays showed empty human colonies, silent space stations, and the apparent total withdrawal of Earth's presence from all contested star systems. Admiral Zixtera stood before the assembled representatives with all four arms raised in triumph. The human problem has been solved permanently, she announced to cheers from hundreds of alien species. Let this serve as a reminder to any other race that might challenge the established order of our galaxy. The Vortok delegation clicked their approval while the crystalline Eldari hummed harmoniously. Even the ancient energy beings flickered with satisfaction. After 30 days of watching human ships flee toward Earth, the Council felt completely vindicated in their decision. But their celebration was interrupted when long-range sensors detected something unexpected. A single human vessel approached the neutral zone, broadcasting on every communication frequency simultaneously. The ship identified itself as the Defiance and requested permission to deliver Earth's final message to the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the main viewing screen, his image transmitted directly into the council chamber. But this transmission was different from all previous human communications. Instead of appearing only on Nexus Prime, Jake's message reached every inhabited system in the galaxy at exactly the same moment. "Citizens of the galaxy," Jake began, his voice carrying across thousands of light years through a network of hidden relay stations that had operated undetected for decades. 30 days ago, your leaders chose to exterminate humanity rather than allow us to coexist peacefully among the stars. His image appeared simultaneously in hegemony military command centers, Vorthok hive cities, Eldari crystal spires, and the home worlds of every species that had voted for humanity's destruction. No attempt to jam or block the transmission succeeded, because the broadcast network was embedded too deeply in their own communication systems. You condemned 4 billion innocent people to death because you feared our growth and adaptability, Jake continued. You refused to share the galaxy with us because you believed we were inferior and dangerous. You made this decision freely and with full knowledge of the consequences. Admiral Zixtera tried to cut the transmission, but found that her technicians could not locate its source. The human message continued broadcasting despite all attempts to stop it. Panic began spreading through the council chamber as they realized they had completely underestimated human capabilities. For 200 years, while you debated our fate and planned our destruction, we prepared our response, Jake said. We studied your worlds, your technologies, and your weaknesses. We integrated ourselves so deeply into your civilizations that we became completely invisible to you. The display screens around Jake began showing detailed star maps of the galaxy, but instead of empty human territories, thousands of markers appeared throughout every major alien system. Mining operations, research stations, communication relays, power plants, and manufacturing facilities all showed human signatures. Every asteroid mining platform in hegemony space was built and maintained by human engineers. Jake explained as the scope of human integration became clear. Every communication satellite orbiting Vorthok worlds was designed by human technicians. Every quantum computer in the Eldari networks runs software written by human programmers. President Morden's ancient energy form flickered with confusion and growing alarm. Impossible! Our security protocols would have detected such extensive infiltration. Jake's image seemed to look directly at the council president. Your security protocols were designed by humans. President Morden, we have been your engineers, your maintenance crews, and your technical support staff for 10 generations. You never noticed us because you never believed we were worth noticing. The revelation sent shockwaves through every alien civilization watching the broadcast. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers suddenly realized how dependent they had become on human expertise and innovation. The comfortable illusion of their technological superiority crumbled as Jake revealed the truth. We improved your life support systems when they were failing, Jake continued. We optimized your industrial processes when they were inefficient. We solved problems you could not solve yourselves. We did this work quietly and without recognition because we believed in cooperation and mutual benefit. Throughout the galaxy, alien engineers rushed to their control centers and made horrifying discoveries. The humans had been telling the truth. Every major system showed signs of human modification and improvement. Decades of upgrades and enhancements had made alien technology completely dependent on human knowledge and skill. But you chose extinction over cooperation, Jake said, his voice growing harder. You chose death over life. You chose destruction over progress. Now you will learn what the galaxy looks like without human contributions. Jake held up a small device that gleamed silver in the light of his ship's bridge. It was a quantum transmitter linked to every human installation hidden throughout alien space. The device represented humanity's final message to the galaxy that had rejected them. This is not a message delivered in words, Jake announced. This is a message delivered through consequences. You wanted us extinct. Let us show you what extinction really means. On Hegemony Worlds, Admiral Zixtara watched in growing horror as her technicians reported system failures throughout their territory. The orbital platforms that maintained breathable atmospheres around their home worlds began shutting down. Military command centers lost contact with their fleets. The gravitational stabilizers that kept their artificial worlds in proper orbit simply stopped working. The Vorthok discovered that their climate control systems were failing across dozens of colonies. The technology that had allowed them to expand beyond their desert homeworlds for 3 centuries no longer functioned. Billions of their population faced exposure to atmospheric conditions they had never learned to survive. On the crystalline homeworld of the Eldari, the vast computer networks that enhanced their mental abilities began reverting to basic functions. The quantum matrices that had expanded their consciousness for millennia simply vanished, leaving them struggling with intellectual tasks they had forgotten how to perform manually. Every improvement we made to your civilizations is being withdrawn, Jake explained as reports of system failures poured in from across the galaxy. Every enhancement we provided is being removed. Every problem we solved for you is now yours to solve again. The Galactic Council Chamber itself became a perfect example of the larger catastrophe. Emergency lighting flickered as power systems reverted to baseline operations. The sophisticated translation systems that allowed dozens of species to communicate broke down completely. For the first time in centuries, council members could not understand each other. Dr. Rachel Stone's voice joined the transmission from Earth's command center. You are now experiencing your civilizations as they existed before human involvement. Every innovation we contributed, every efficiency we created, every advancement we shared has been removed. The scope of the disaster became clear as cascading failures spread through every alien territory. Trade routes collapsed as navigation systems failed. Mining operations halted as extraction equipment reverted to ancient designs. Food production slowed as agricultural automation disappeared. For 200 years, we were the galaxy's invisible foundation. Rachel continued. We maintained the systems that kept your worlds habitable. We wrote the programs that ran your computers. We designed the machines that sustained your populations. We did this work because we believed in building something better together. Jake's image returned to the center of the transmission. But you chose to throw away everything we built together. You chose to destroy the partnership that had made all of your achievements possible. This is the price of that choice. The broadcast reached its climax as Jake prepared to activate the final phase of Project Lazarus. Remember this moment, citizens of the galaxy. Remember that you had the opportunity to work with humanity as equals and partners. Remember that you chose extinction instead. Remember that everything that follows was your decision, not ours. Jake pressed the activation key. Across the galaxy, every hidden human installation began its coordinated shutdown. The message was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same. The effect of Jake's activation was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations that had operated smoothly for centuries suddenly found themselves facing complete technological collapse. The systems they had relied on for basic survival simply stopped working. On the hegemony capital world of Zentar, Admiral Zixtera stood in her command center, watching displays flicker and die around her. The massive orbital platforms that regulated the planet's atmosphere began failing one by one. Each platform that went offline meant less breathable air for the 2 billion inhabitants below. "Report," she demanded, though her voice betrayed the fear she was trying to hide. Her chief engineer, a tall alien with 6 arms and metallic skin, consulted his failing instruments. "Admiral, the quantum fold communication array has completely shut down. We have lost contact with all outer system fleets. The gravitational stabilizers are operating at only 12% efficiency. The atmospheric processes are reverting to baseline configurations that cannot support our current population." Similar chaos erupted throughout hegemony space. On the mining world of Kepler-7, human technician Pete Johnson watched alien supervisors run frantically between machines that no longer responded to their commands. For 30 years, Pete had quietly maintained the quantum regulators that extracted rare minerals from the planet's core. "The extraction rate has dropped to almost nothing," reported the hegemony supervisor, his metallic face showing panic. "How do we restore full functionality?" Pete looked at the complex control panel that he had designed and built himself over 3 decades of patient work. "You don't," he said simply. "This entire system was human engineering. Without us, you are looking at maybe 5% of previous output." The supervisor's 6 arms trembled as he realized the implications. "But our entire economy depends on these mining operations. Hundreds of worlds rely on these materials. And you should have thought about that before you voted to exterminate us," Pete replied calmly. He gathered his personal belongings and walked toward the transport that would take him to the evacuation ships. Behind him, alien engineers stared helplessly at equipment they had never learned to understand. In Vorthok space, the situation was even more desperate. The insect-like species had expanded far beyond their desert homeworlds using human-designed climate-control technology. Now, as those systems failed, billions of Vorthok faced atmospheric conditions that their biology could not handle. Queen Zixandra stood in the central hive of New Mandible Colony, watching her workers collapse as the air became too thin and cold for their desert-adapted bodies. The climate controllers that had maintained perfect conditions for 3 centuries were shutting down faster than her. Technicians could understand. How long before total system failure? She asked her chief engineer through clicking mandible sounds. "Less than 6 standard days," came the terrifying reply. "The human modifications to our environmental systems were so extensive that we cannot operate them manually. Our people will have to evacuate to the old desert worlds or face death." The queen's compound eyes reflected the emergency lighting. As she contemplated the scope of the disaster, 47 colony worlds would have to be abandoned. Nearly 30 billion Vorthok would need to crowd back onto the 12 desert planets where their species had originated. Many would not survive the transition. On the ancient Eldari home world, the crystalline beings faced a different but equally devastating crisis. For millennia, they had enhanced their natural mental abilities using quantum-powered computer networks that humans had quietly upgraded and maintained. Now those networks were reverting to their original basic functions. Elder Crystallis felt his enhanced consciousness shrinking as the quantum matrices went offline around him. Complex mathematical calculations that had been effortless for centuries suddenly became impossible. Scientific theories that had occupied his expanded mind for decades simply vanished from his awareness. "We are becoming primitive again," he communicated to his fellow Eldari through harmonic vibrations. "The mental enhancements that defined our civilization for 3,000 years are disappearing. We can barely perform the intellectual tasks that our ancestors managed without assistance." The younger Eldari, who had never existed without quantum enhancements, struggled even more severely. Many fell into catatonic states as their artificially expanded minds contracted to natural levels. The species that had considered themselves the galaxy's greatest intellects discovered they could no longer function without human support. Back on Nexus Pride, the Galactic Council Chamber had become a scene of complete chaos. The translation systems that allowed different species to communicate had broken down entirely. Representatives who had worked together for decades could no longer understand each other's languages. President Morton's ancient energy form flickered weakly as his mechanical containment shell operated on emergency power reserves. Status report on galactic communication networks, he demanded. Though half the council could not understand his words, the few technicians still able to access working systems brought devastating news. Sir, the quantum communication relay have failed throughout all major sectors. We estimate that 70% of interstellar communication capability has been lost. Trade coordination is impossible. Military fleet coordination is impossible. Even basic administrative functions are breaking down. Admiral Zixthera managed to restore limited communication with her homeworld long enough to receive more bad news. Admiral, our industrial production has fallen to 15% of normal levels. Our agricultural systems are failing. Our transportation networks are operating sporadically. We are facing complete civilizational collapse. The scope of humanity's integration into alien society became clear as the failures cascaded through every aspect of galactic civilization. Humans had not simply added new technology to existing systems. They had rebuilt the fundamental infrastructure that held alien society together. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the Defiance, continued broadcasting from the neutral zone. His voice reached a few communication systems still functioning across the galaxy. You are experiencing your civilizations without human contributions. This is what your galaxy looked like before we arrived. To help you build something better, Dr. Rachel Stone's image appeared alongside Jake's, transmitted from Earth's command bunkers. Our analysis indicates that most of your civilizations will stabilize at approximately 15% of current population levels. Your technology will function, but at efficiency levels similar to what you achieved 500 years ago. The implications of her words sent waves of terror through every alien leader still able to receive the transmission. 15% population levels meant the death of billions and the collapse of everything they had built over millennia of expansion. There is another option, Jake continued, his voice carrying a note of possibility. Full restoration is possible, but not under the old terms. Humanity will no longer work in the shadows, providing unacknowledged support for civilizations that view us as expendable. Admiral Zisare, speaking through one of the few working communication channels, asked a question that every alien leader was thinking. What do you want from us? Recognition, Jake replied simply. Equal representation in galactic governance. Territory rights that cannot be revoked by committee vote. Protection for human colonies and trade rights throughout all member systems. Most importantly, acknowledgement that humans are partners, not servants. President Morton, his energy form barely visible through his failing containment shell, managed to ask, and if we refuse these terms? Dr. Rachel Stone's response was matter-of-fact and terrifying. Then you continue managing with pre-human technology. Levels. Our projections show that your civilizations will eventually adapt to the new limitations, but the transition period will last several centuries and cost billions of lives. The choice facing the galaxy was stark and simple. They could acknowledge humanity as equals and restore their technological civilization. Or they could maintain their arrogance and watch their empires crumble into primitive shadows of their former glory. As reports of system failures continued pouring in from every corner of the galaxy, it became clear that the aliens had never truly understood how dependent they had become on human expertise. The species they had dismissed as inferior newcomers had actually become the invisible foundation holding their entire civilization together. The reckoning had arrived, and the price of their arrogance was higher than any of them had imagined possible. 6 months after the activation of Project Lazarus, the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former glory. The hegemony, which had once controlled over 300 star systems, had contracted to fewer than 50 worlds capable of supporting their population. Billions had died in the transition as planets became uninhabitable without human-maintained life support systems. The Vorthok had abandoned most of their colonies entirely, retreating to their original desert worlds where millions died from overcrowding and resource shortages. The proud insect species that had once boasted of their galactic influence now struggled to feed their own people on planets they had not needed for centuries. The Eldari faced perhaps the cruelest fate of all. Their enhanced intelligence, which had defined their civilization for millennia, was gone. The crystalline beings wandered their cities like children, unable to comprehend the simplest scientific principles they had once mastered effortlessly. The Galactic Council met in emergency session aboard a converted cargo ship since Nexus Prime remained beyond their ability to repair. The grand chambers that had once hosted thousands of representatives from hundreds of species now accommodated fewer than 50 delegates with functioning interstellar travel capabilities. Captain Jake Morrison stood before them again, but the power dynamic had fundamentally changed. Where once he had begged for humanity's survival, he now addressed a gathering of beings who had learned the true cost of their arrogance. The restoration process can begin immediately, Jake announced to the assembled survivors, but it will proceed under new terms that reflect the reality of our mutual dependence. Admiral Zixare, her proud bearing, now marked by desperation and defeat, spoke for the remnants of the council. What are your demands? Jake's response was measured and reasonable. Equal representation in all galactic governance. Permanent territory rights for human colonies that cannot be revoked by majority votes. Full acknowledgement of human contributions to galactic civilization. Most importantly, genuine partnership rather than the servitude you previously expected. President Morden, operating on minimal power reserves in his failing containment shell, raised what seemed like a logical objection. And if we refuse these terms, Dr. Rachel Stone's image appeared alongside Jake's, transmitted from Earth's restored command centers. Then you continue managing with pre-human technology levels? Our long-term projections indicate that your civilizations will eventually stabilize, but at population levels and technological capabilities similar to what existed 800 years ago, the threat was clear and devastating. Without human expertise, the aliens faced centuries of decline and the permanent loss of everything they had achieved since humanity's arrival in galactic space. However, Jake continued, there is a better option available. Full partnership offers benefits that neither humans nor aliens could achieve alone. Dr. Stone activated a holographic display showing technological blueprints and scientific schematics that made the assembled aliens gasp with amazement. These are innovations we developed during our isolation period, but never implemented. Faster than light. Communication systems that operate instantaneously across galactic distances. Terraforming techniques that can transform dead worlds into garden paradises within decades. Medical technologies that could extend lifespans for all species by several centuries. The promise was tantalizing beyond measure. Not just restoration of what had been lost, but advancement beyond anything the galaxy had previously imagined. But it came at the price of acknowledging humanity as true equals, rather than useful servants. The debate among the surviving alien representatives was brief and decisive. Admiral Zixare, speaking for the hegemony remnants, cast the first votes. The hegemony accepts the proposed partnership terms. Queen Zixandra, attending virtually from her overcrowded desert world, clicked her mandibles in agreement. The Vorthal Collective accepts. We have learned the price of arrogance. Elder Crystallis, his once brilliant mind now functioning at basic levels, harmonized his acceptance. The Eldari acknowledge our era and accept human partnership. One by one, every surviving species voted to accept a new arrangement. The alternative was simply too terrible to contemplate. The formal signing of the Galactic Cooperation Charter took place 3 months later aboard a new space station designed jointly by human and alien engineers. President Maria Santos, representing United Earth, sat alongside Admiral Queen Zixandra and Elder Crystallis as they established the framework for a truly cooperative galactic civilization. This charter establishes that no single species shall have the power to threaten another with extinction, President Santos announced as she signed the historic document. All major decisions affecting member species must be made through consensus and cooperation. Admiral Jake Morrison, now promoted to lead the new Joint Defense Fleet, watched the ceremony from the station's observation deck. The fleet under his command included ships and crews from every member species, working together in ways that would have been impossible under the old system. The restoration of alien civilizations proceeded rapidly once human engineers returned to work openly rather than in secret. But this time, their contributions were acknowledged and celebrated. Joint research teams made discoveries that exceeded everyone's expectations, combining human innovation with alien knowledge in unprecedented ways. On New Kepler Station, human technician Pete Johnson worked alongside hegemony engineers to restore the mining operations. But instead of the secret maintenance he had performed for decades, he now taught alien workers to understand and operate the systems themselves. The key is understanding the quantum resonance patterns, Pete explained to his eager alien students. Humans learn to work with these forces, but there is no reason other species cannot master them as well. The former enemies had become genuine partners in rebuilding galactic civilization. Dr. Rachel Stone led joint scientific expeditions that opened new frontiers of space previously unreachable by any single species. The technologies developed through true cooperation exceeded the capabilities that either humans or aliens had achieved alone. But perhaps the most significant change was in attitude and perspective. The Galactic Council chambers, now relocated to Unity Station, featured a new symbol above the main platform. Instead of representing any single species, it showed interlinked rings representing the cooperation of all member civilizations. Captain Jake Morrison, reflecting on the transformation during quiet moments on his flagship bridge, often remembered Earth's final message to the galaxy. The message had been delivered with devastating clarity and effectiveness. You made this decision now. Pay the price. The price had been paid in full. Billions had died. Civilizations had collapsed, and the old order had been swept away forever. But from those ashes had emerged something better than anyone had imagined possible. The galaxy had learned that cooperation yielded far better results than oppression, but only after being forced to experience the consequences of their choices. The species that had dismissed humanity as primitive upstarts discovered that their survival depended on the very people they had tried to destroy. Dr. Stone, now serving as Director of Galactic Scientific Cooperation, often worked late into the night developing new technologies that would benefit all member species equally. The laboratories where she had once planned humanity's desperate final gambit now focused on creating a better future for everyone. We could have achieved all of this without the crisis, she commented to Jake during one of their regular planning meetings. If they had simply accepted us as equals from the beginning, none of the destruction was necessary. Jake nodded as he looked out at the stars where human and alien ships now worked together, exploring new worlds. But they chose the hard way. They forced us to demonstrate our value through consequences rather than cooperation. The lesson had been learned permanently. Never again would any species in the galaxy face extinction simply for being different or successful. The new constitutional framework made such decisions impossible by requiring unanimous consent for any action affecting a member species' survival. 3 years after the crisis, the galaxy had not only recovered but had exceeded its previous achievements in every measurable way. Trade flourished under fair regulations that protected all species equally. Scientific advancement accelerated through collaborative research programs. Military conflicts virtually disappeared as the new cooperative framework resolved disputes through negotiation and mutual benefit. Admiral Morrison, now commanding exploration fleets that included crew members from dozens of different worlds, often received messages from human colonies throughout the galaxy. These settlements, which had once faced extinction, now thrived as equal partners in the galactic community. The final irony was not lost on any of the participants. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity to preserve their established order, only to discover that their established order had been built on human contributions all along. By attempting to eliminate the foundation of their civilization, they had forced themselves to acknowledge and honor it. Earth's final message had indeed reached every corner of the galaxy and every species that had voted for humanity's destruction. The message was simple, devastating, and permanent.